Hey guys, I'm here with Alex Hormozi and really excited. Welcome to Driven Channel. I'm really pumped up about this interview because me and my wife, we talk a lot about you guys. We're like, damn, usually we're like the young entrepreneurs that are doing good and making money and everybody's older, you know,
Yeah.
but with you guys, we're like, damn, you guys make us feel old. So like I know you're 31, your wife's 29, and you guys have an incredible story that reminds us a lot also of our battles. Like when you start a business, you go broke, you don't have money, you're barely surviving. And I know you sold businesses for a lot of money. You made some good money,
Yeah.
and now you're CEO of acquisitions.com. So Alex, first of all, thank you for being part of this. And if you could get started with maybe your story of how you started in the entrepreneurship, and who is Alex Hormozi for those that might not know you. Thank you for being here.
I know, 100%. Thank you guys for having me. Very excited to be here. And for everybody who's listening or watching, very honored that you lend us your time and your attention. I'll do my very best, or I know we will both do our very best to give you a high return on it. So Leila and I was a management consultant right out of college at a boutique strategy firm which did space, cyber, and intelligence for the military. Seems like a completely different life than I live right now. Did that for a few years, didn't particularly enjoy it. Sounded cool at dinner parties, but that was about all it really gave me, was a cool dinner party line. So maybe some of you guys are in that same situation where your job sounds cooler on paper than it does in reality. And then it was kind of, I'll bring this up and it sounds kind of morbid for the first like 60 seconds or 2 minutes of a podcast, but it was only when I was really contemplating like not living anymore, because I hated it so much, because I'd done all the decisions I had in my life up to that point because of what I thought my father wanted me to do for him, you know what I mean? And so he was an immigrant, came here when he was in his mid to late 20s. He had me a few years later. And I always had a lot of respect for that, and I wanted to like honor the sacrifice that he had, coming here with $1,000 and building what he built for himself just through his education and working hard. And so he wanted me, to be a doctor in his footsteps. I decided not to be during college because I was like, I really don't like this. I really like business better. He's like, fine, then this is the path you have to go. Do the 2 years, do the MBA, but it basically came to a decision where I said, I either have to die to my father or I have to die to myself. And so I figured, well, I might as well be alive and die to him. And so that was kind of the turning point for me when I was able to quit my job and start pursuing what I really wanted to do. So I quit my job. I drove across the country from DC/Baltimore all the way to LA. It was actually Chino Hills. So I was Inland Empire. We were just talking before this about Sam Bakhtiar. So I showed up at Sam's doorstep. He had no idea why I was there, but he offered to like let me into his mastermind, even though I didn't have a gym, and kind of like show me the ropes in the beginning. So I immediately, and this is some of the advantages I had, I think, and why I was able to move so quickly. Like if you think about an order of sequence, like I went from having a job straight into a mastermind. Like the first thing I did was I bought into a mastermind because I figured, and this is from the consulting world, the fastest way to learn anything is by consulting experts, is by learning from people who've already consolidated information for you. Because like you've got Google. It's like, sure, you have everything that's available to you.
Yeah.
But trying to pull that together in one place, like sifting that is the hardest part, right? All right, sorry, my ADD was killing me. And so that was the first thing I did. And then from there, I started my first gym. I was sleeping on the floor there. It took me 9 months to get it kind of built up and outsourced. And then from there, we opened a new gym every 6 months, and then sold that chain, and then retained the IP. And we started flying out doing gym turnarounds. That's when I met Leila. And that was kind of like a brief story of like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And then right after that, I lost everything again.
Speaking of Leila, I know when you guys met, and also like I like when you get on a good talk, good story, just keep going, because I'm not an interviewer.
Okay.
Like it's like I'm more excited about this because like you're a business guy, I'm a business guy, and I'm just curious about like how you did it, what did you do? But when you met Leila, I remember you guys got married. Not because you guys were in love. It was like a business transaction. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we talk about it a lot because I think I like our dynamic a lot. And it's not normal because most people, and every relationship I had prior to this, it was like you meet somebody, you feel some chemistry, and then it gets hot and heavy really quickly. And then it starts to cool down a little bit, and then you kind of like get into this cruise zone, and then you look up and you're like, we actually don't have a lot of things that we're in common besides the fact that we're opposite, which is why we attracted to begin with. But like, we're opposite. Like you like you vote for this guy, I vote for this guy. You like these things, I like these things. Like it's just so many differences. And so we had a different experience where like we went on our first date and we ended up talking about business for 4 hours. And I was like, cool. And I didn't like have any romantic anything, but I was like, she's cool. And so I felt myself kind of just like wanting to see her again. So I was like, hey, I remember the next day I was like, hey, I'm working all day. Want to come work with me? Like it wasn't a date. I was like, I'm just going to be working at my place or at the library or whatever. And she said, sure. And so then she just like hung out with me and then we just both worked together after that. And that was kind of like the theme of how, like the vibe of how things started is like, whatever I was doing, I'd just rather do it with her. And so it was much more companionate, rather than like love, like the capital L, you know what I mean? Love relationship. But then I think the shared mission and shared values of like, this is what I want to do with my life. She's like, me too. I want to do big shit. And like up to that point, I had definitely dated people who wanted to do big things, but like the types of big things they wanted to do were different than the types of things I wanted to do. And so we weren't mission aligned. And so and I think that, probably you feel this way too. Like when you want to do big things, like it's rare air, like not a lot of people breathe that air. And what you have to go through to get there is hard. And I knew that where I wanted to go, not a lot of people would be able to hang. And that might be from childhood, from whatever, whatever it is. But like, I just knew that I was willing to go through a lot of suffering to get there. And she was too. And that was, and like there were a couple, I'll tell you the two key moments in our relationship that did it for me. But the first one was when I lost everything, the second time for me, the first time for her.
Yeah.
When I lost everything, I kind of sat her down. I was like, hey, like, we're cool. Like, if you leave right now, like, all respect, like I won't blame you. I will, like, we're cool. And she was like, no, I'm here. She's like, if I have to sleep with you under a bridge, I will. And I remember being like, man, that's awesome. Like, that's really cool that she just like was there, even though I gave her like an out card. And then the second time was we really needed this money to come in. And I said, listen, like I have to just sell my ass off at this location, and you need to go to this gym in Hawaii and you need to crush it. Cause it cost like 10 grand for her to get there. And it was like about the last 10 grand I had. And she needed to do 100,000 in net sales, cash collected in 30 days in order for us to like cover all these bills that were coming in from these other directions. And right before she left, we like took a break because I was like, I was just too stressed out of all these different things that were going on. And she flew out there and she killed it. And she didn't have to. She wasn't technically associated with me anymore. And she could have just left and be like, I'm just going to go back and just do my own thing, whatever. And then when most people would crumble, she just like stood tall and got harder. And that was when I was like, she can go through everything that I can go through. And so it was like those two instances is when I knew that like that she was going to be the person who was going to come with me to where I wanted to go.
Do you feel like you have to get to that darkest moment to become somebody really successful? So like you're really successful. I see you guys, especially with the age, you guys have done a lot. But like in the beginning, I know that there's a lot of times where, like you said, you don't want to live anymore. Yeah. You're really stressed out, and you get down to your last penny. Yeah. Do you think that's important for somebody to go through that and come back up to really make it, or be in a position where they're going to continue to make it? You think you could have done it differently without having to go through all that pain?
Yes and no. So I don't think that suffering is a requisite for success, but I do think that it is very likely. Yeah. And I think that what it does is it gives us evidence. Like when you get into hard times, it doesn't change who you are. It gives you evidence of who you are. It demonstrates who you are. So some people are like, when the going gets tough, the tough get, the whatever the saying is. But I think that a lot of times it just reveals our character. It doesn't necessarily create it, because it might have already been there that whole time, and then we just get the environment in which to prove it to ourselves. Yeah. But I think it goes from the man with the opinion to the man with the experience, which L.H. Hardwick said, no man with an experience is ever at the mercy of a man with an opinion. And so like somebody could be like, oh man, like 2008 wasn't that bad. Like somebody who's younger, it hasn't gone through it, but like man with an opinion, man with an experience who went through it, he's never at that guy's mercy. And so like there's some like soul hardness that I think comes through that, because you have evidence in your past of like, I have been through worse. that being said, I think that you can extrapolate any negative experience to give yourself a shield against any new negative. So it's like, I'll give you a different example. So let's say you're new to business, which a lot of people maybe listening to this are, but you might have had a tough upbringing, which a lot of people listening to this probably have, right? Because a lot of people suffer because we're kids, right? If you think to yourself like, man, like none of this is nearly as bad as my dad whooping the shit out of me, all of a sudden it just gives you a very different context of what hard feels like, right? Or mom or whatever it is, right? And so, or my brother, it doesn't matter who it is, but the point is like we've gone through hard shit, and I think that what hard feels like is the same, whether it's a business hard or an emotional hard, it feels the same. And so I think if you can take these past experiences that are hard before and extrapolate them onto your current situation, you realize you've been through so much more than this. And then you can look back and say, like, to use the Morpheus quote from The Matrix, like, I stand here truthfully unafraid, not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me.
Yeah.
And so I think that those hard times give us evidence of who we are.
Yeah.
And I think it's the stories that we tell ourselves that create, the futures we're going to have.
Now, Alex, what do you think if you wouldn't have met Leila?
Yeah.
And maybe you meet Kyla or somebody else? where do you
Kayla, right?
Where do you think you are at this moment? Do you think you're as successful, less successful?
No.
Because let me tell you something. The reason why I asked this because me and Sil are really different.
Yeah.
Like I'm like the visionary, the recruiter, the sales guy, and she's the operator. So she operates everything. If we have an event, like if she didn't have me, we wouldn't have any people.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have her, we would have people and we would lose all the people because I don't know how to operate, plan, organize. I'm horrible at that. So like my job is to bring in agents and her job is to keep the agents.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Totally. It's the same dynamic.
Yeah.
We have the identical dynamic between Leila and I. But
how does that work and where do you think you would have been without Leila?
So, of course, since Leila is in the background of the audience, I would be homeless under that bridge. That's what I would just be there just without anything. No, but we actually have this conversation a lot. Like if I were not in her life, she would probably just find someone who's similar to me and find a complementary skill set. And like if she were not in my life, I would like the business requires these functions to occur. And whether it's mixed between me and Leila or Leila's because like we talk about like what if Alex dies? Because we think about like what happens after that. Same scenario. Well, she might have to find 2 or 3 people to do the functions that I'm doing, and so I probably can't find one Leila, but I might be able to find like 2 or 3 people who can fill the holes that she leaves to make sure that the functions get done. And so it's like, so Y Combinator has put out a lot of research on the fact that like 3 founders is the ideal amount of people for a business, and I think that just happens to be like. There are kind of buckets of activity that must occur in order for a business to be successful. And it's just more difficult for a single founder to do that on their own, where all the hats learn all the things, or find and incentivize someone who's good enough to be like owner level of give a shit. I don't know like the cussing words on this, but like,
that's fine.
Yeah, the owner level of give a shit in a company when it's early days. And so I think that's why it gets so hard for people to get going, because especially if you're a solo, you own 100%, et cetera. If it's just you, like we both have the advantage of 2 owners just right off the bat. And I remember when we were coming up and competing against other people, I always used to think like, even if I'm toe to toe with this guy, I was like, I've also got her and he doesn't. And I was like, it's 2-on-1. Yeah. Like with every business, competitive space I felt, I was like, it's 2-on-1. Like we always come to with an advantage. And so I think that if you can get that founding team in place of talented people who have complementary skill sets. And for anybody who's watching, like the 3 kind of big ones, and you alluded to it, was like, you've got your acquisition side, which is the promoter, who's going to bring people into the door. You've got the operation side, the product side, right? Which is how are we going to fulfill the promises we made on the front end, right? And then the third one keeps the other 2 out of jail, which is, HR, finance, legal, IT, taxes, accounting. All that stuff. And so those are kind of the 3 elements that we see within the business. You've got your product, you've got your acquisition, and then you've got all the stuff to keep yourself out of prison.
Well, what is the biggest lesson you think you learned? And do you think maybe if you would have known what you know now, you could have been with more money earlier? Is there one big lesson that if you can go back, you'll change?
Yeah. It took me 5 years to learn focus. It took me 5 years, maybe 10. Depending on
what do you mean about focus?
Picking one opportunity and ruthlessly going after that one thing. I think a lot of people, me.
Yeah.
I get so I get excited I love opportunity. I love seeing the unseen, seeing where things could come together.
'Cause I see your mind going like I could tell like from far, like when you walked in the first time right here, and we met back in Brad Lee's event.
Yeah.
But you just, I could tell that you have so many ideas going in your head. I don't know if that's true, but you seem like you're thinking like 100 things at once.
Yeah.
And so like you talked about focus.
Yeah.
I'm Howard Preciado. If you like what you're watching and you want to learn from an entrepreneur that built 8 companies and makes over $30 million a year, text me at 213-277-6208 and let's make it happen.
Does that also mean how you manage your time? Because I know in the beginning part, you give everybody your time. And then after you start growing, then you stop giving people time. And then some people just get insulted and they get mad. And how do you approach that?
So two separate. One is kind of like the networking and people thing, and the other side was like the business focus side. Yeah. So on the business focus side, it's accepting the fact that there are always many 10 out of 10 opportunities. So the first thing I did was I was picking bad opportunities to go after. You know what I mean? Like, opening a dry cleaning store, or rather, I'll walk up the opportunity ladder. This might be interesting for everyone. So like, opportunity level number 1 is that you're working at a dry cleaning store, right? Like, and you're cleaning the clothing, right? That's like lowest level opportunity. You're trading time for dollars. You have zero leverage. One level above that is you're managing at that store. So now you in some way have some leverage, but you're not still owning, but you're operating, right? Mm-hmm. Level above that is you own the dry cleaning store. Okay, that's cool, but your leverage is you got 5-mile, radius of people that you can serve out of the entire world. And the only level of leverage you have there is labor. That's all you have, is you have leverage over other people's time. The level above that is you franchise, or you sell other people your business model for how to do it. Now, all of a sudden, you've got capital and you've got leverage. You've got other people's money and other people's time. So all of a sudden, that thing can go from being maybe a $1 million opportunity to a $100 million opportunity, right? And then all of a sudden, if you aggregate franchises, right, now you're at $1 billion. So it's like each of these things and if let's say you created a software that made the whole thing faster, it's like now you're using code, and then you associate like Kylie Jenner's brand with like Kylie Clean, whatever. Yeah. And so then you're using media to get even more leverage on the opportunity. And so learning about leverage was the thing that took me a long time to understand in terms of what boat I'm in. So I'll give you the quote from Warren Buffett, but he said, I'll give you the full quote. So he had his closest friend from Columbia Business School who went to school with him. They were really smart, really hardworking, liked each other a lot. When they finished, his best buddy went to do into steel business, manufacturing steel, and then he started Berkshire Hathaway. 30, 40 years later, this guy, the steel business is a tough business, right? He's like, he made an okay living. He's like, but he didn't do anything really exceptional. And then Warren built Berkshire Hathaway. And he said, and that's when I learned that it wasn't about how hard you row, but what boat you're in. And so there's a lot of really, really hardworking people out there who are really smart. They're just not, the thing that they're missing is ignorance of opportunity, is ignorance of leverage. And so if you can get into a better leverage opportunity, the same time or same effort or same intelligence can yield you a 10x, 20x, 1000x return, which is hard to conceptualize, but still true. And so understanding the leverage of the opportunity, and then from a character perspective, understanding that I have to pick a high leverage opportunity and I must stick with it for an unreasonable amount of time. I have to just keep doing it. And the outsized returns, the compounding of the opportunity comes from the depth of the experience, which comes through repetition. And so a lot of people get, whether a mile wide, an inch deep, rather than a mile deep, an inch wide. And most times that kind of depth of experience is what gives you the compounding outsized returns in the longer haul. And so I think if I had known, 1, how to pick the right opportunity, and 2, said, okay, if I did just this thing for the next 10 years, it would be unreasonable for me not to be a billionaire, then nothing else matters. Mm-hmm. So even if somebody's like, dude, I've got this new tech thing, it's going to be huge, I could say, totally understand. But if I do just the thing I'm doing right now, I'll get to $1 billion, which is right now the current goal, right? Yeah. And so that's it. Like, and I could have 20 other things. Like, dude, we got to do this building together. Like, I'll bet you I could make money on that. But if I do nothing else besides this one thing that I'm focused on, I will get to $1 billion. And so everything that is not that is a distraction from that.
Yeah. What do you think keeps people from not doing that? Because like there's so many opportunities that come up, and especially now with how much you're known now, a lot more than before, right? Yeah. You probably get a ton of opportunities where people pitch you like, "Hey, I got this. I'm gonna make. We could make millions with this." Yeah. But why do you think? Let's just say Scott.
Yeah.
can't Scott just focus on mortgages or real estate? Why does he have to do events? Why does Scott have to go out there and do like this other side business and this other side business? And then they just get
diluted.
Yeah, and then they don't, when they could just go out there and make millions in real estate or mortgages. What do you think is what gets people to do that? It's kind of frustrating. Because I lead a lot of people, and then I find them like, hey, you know what? It's cool doing the little swing and dance at TikTok but what is that? Like, focus on what you're doing.
Make more calls. Yeah. So I think it's human behavior, and so the way that we describe this is local versus global benefit. And so a simple example is like, if I want to have a 6-pack, right? Why does Sarah go grab a piece of cake rather than grabbing a piece of chicken breast? Because the local benefit, the acute benefit of having a piece of cake is higher in the local region. But the global benefit for her body is lower. And so humans in general will tend to optimize for local benefit rather than global. And the people who can simply optimize for global benefit, for their system-wide benefit, are the ones that get the biggest compounding returns over the long haul. It's the same thing as in a business setting. Why don't the sales guys leave notes in the CRM so that when the customer service rep or the onboarding rep can see the notes to, have a way better experience, have, way better ascension rates, way less churn, dropout, all these other great metrics that would improve the overall business? Because the local pain, right, of writing the notes in is harder than not doing it, but doing it gives the global benefit that is worth it, right? And an interesting one from an operational perspective, because like I'm sure you've also had the flip side of people who over operationalize things, they over process shit, and then it gets too hard, is that the point of process is to give a global benefit. And so you can measure, is there a global benefit from this thing? If we're having people do lots of stuff, but it doesn't have a global benefit, where the global benefit does not outweigh the cost, like for example, let's say that one of the benefits is if we could have people walk through a 20-step sales page thing so they could finish all of that without the finance department hopping on. Sure, that might be a benefit globally, but the global loss might be that we lose sales by like 70% because it's such a pain in the ass, right? And so you have to look at, global cost versus global benefit on any kind of initiative. And so to get back to the why does Johnny have a bunch of side hustles is because the local perceived benefit of a shiny object sounds exciting. Even though globally we could make a very easy argument that if you took all that time, all that attention, all that wasted energy, and just put it into the thing that is his main vehicle, you get outsized returns. Because the thing that Johnny doesn't understand, and this is alluding to the lesson that you mentioned earlier, is that like all the gains come at the end. You know what I mean? And so many guys are like, they're doing 80% effort in 3 things, where if you just did that extra 20 for the one thing, you would get more on that 20 than you would on everything else.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And so it's a diminishing marginal return with an outsized absolute return. And so I'll give a different example to drive this up. Sorry for loading the examples. If I'm a runner and I'm in the Olympics and I train, the amount that an extra, 2 hours a day of training does for me, the amount extra speed I get might be this much, right? The last 2 hours compared to the first 2 hours, I might get this much extra. But this much extra is the difference between first and fourth. And so what's the absolute difference of that marginal return? It's everything. And so I think that when we're trying to compete in the space, we have to understand, like, you are going to have less return on your time in an opportunity, but the absolute return of being that much better than everyone else makes all the difference in the world. If you're a really good sales trainer versus the best sales trainer, you'll make 10 times more money being number one. And that's the absolute versus marginal difference.
And Alex, when you guys were growing and you guys made a certain amount of money where you never made that money before. You guys are both good looking, really good shape. You guys look like models. When people, did you ever have people having envy towards you? Like when you started growing, maybe you had your right hand person or your left hand person, and then they're like, wait a minute, if they could do it, I can do it. Maybe I'm gonna go out there and start something and be their competitor. Did you ever deal with people like that?
So peeling the pieces apart, there's the envy side, and then people, copying and do things like that. Yes, I think the last time I counted, we had over 20 people who would work for me who tried to start similar companies. So yes to that question. In terms of envy, I don't know. I don't know what their primary motivation was. It might have just been like wanting to do more for themselves, like, and that's fine. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, now we will compete, and I will do everything I can to win.
Yeah.
And so, are any of those companies bigger than the company that we had? No. Are all of them together not bigger than a quarter of what we had? No.
Is there something that you guys do to maximize all the people that you have so that?
Yeah, that was a good lesson that from what you were asking earlier about like any lessons that I learned. I think that letting other, like, I was so early on, it was just like every dollar has to be mine. You know what I mean? I think that giving more slices of the pie to people, you get so much more. You net, like, Jeff Bezos right now owns 10% of Amazon, right? Elon owns 17% of Tesla. Warren Buffett owns 38% of Berkshire his stock, whatever. And so these huge guys understood a concept, which is like the more money you can make other people, the more money you make, even though if the pie's not 100% yours. And it took me, that's a lesson that took me too long to understand, because if you give other people slices of the pie, then you can gain your time back disproportionately. And so it's like, it'd be better to have 51% of 100 businesses, you know what I mean, than 100% of, you know what I mean? And because you can just give the opportunity away. But the problem is that everyone thinks that the boat they're in is the only boat they'll ever be in for the rest of their lives. Not to say you shouldn't focus on that boat, but I'm saying, like, we think so small.
And are you talking about equity-wise or also compensation-wise, both?
Yeah, but I just mean in general, just like however you slice up the pie, you know.
Now getting back to the whole fitness part, I heard somewhere, like, I don't believe it, but maybe you could convince me otherwise. But I heard you say that you work out twice a week, and that you have a way of eating where you get all your food in the beginning. And is there a science that you mastered?
It's the end, so it's the end of the day mostly. But yeah, so there's in order to have, there's minimum effective dose, right? And then there's MRV, which is maximal recoverable volume. All right, so those are the two extremes from a training perspective. So the amount that it takes to maintain the amount of muscle mass you have is typically significantly less than most people expect. And the amount that it takes to grow and to get an adaptation, and then the maximum amount that you can do and recover from is usually much further down the volume spectrum than people expect. And most people are just in between those two things. So they're above the amount to maintain, but not enough to adapt. So like they're just doing more work than is necessary to just basically stay the same.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that happens with a lot of systems in terms of, like, let's say you're working on sales. It's like they read their sales script every morning. So they're enough to maintain. They do the minimal amount to maintain, but maybe they do a little bit more, but it's not enough to drive adaptation, to drive growth. Right. And so the fitness example works for life in general, but if I want to grow, then I will train like 90 minutes, 6 days a week. So every day, and I'll train maybe even 2 hours a day, and I will force the muscle to grow. Like, you will either break or you will grow, because there's no way you can stay the same given the amount of punishment I'm putting on this muscle, right? And it's not about even the intensity. It's like, if I do legs every day for 6 days straight, my legs will grow. If your arms are small and you train arms every single day, your arms will grow, I promise you. And so then what happens is, if I know that I have the work ethic to do this level of volume, then it comes to, okay, not to get too tactical here, but like, what exercise selection can I do that does not give me joint pain? Because if you do that much volume, joint pain can start coming an issue. So then it's about finding the exercises that you are really biomechanically advantaged for, that give you the least amount of stress, or rotating between 2 to 3 of those throughout that 6-day cycle. So you might go like exercise A, B, C, and then A, B, C for that 6 days. And that way you get a little bit of variety on the joint while still maximizing the amount of volume you do. That's the training side. The food side is, I know that you've alluded to the video that I had, was just calories and protein is pretty much all you have to do, which is why we eat dessert every night. And we do that because, like, if you could have rice and potatoes or just like a big ice cream sundae, I'd rather have a big ice cream sundae, but that's me.
Are you still on the clean drinking diet, or do you drink?
We do not drink much. I would say, like, Leila has one drink and I will have some of it sometimes. But it's definitely not with the intention of getting drunk.
It is because I saw a video where you posted you didn't drink for a while.
Yeah.
How did not drinking for a while? How did And how does your health in general, like
Yeah.
staying in shape, working out, how does that contribute to your business's successes?
I think at that time when I stopped drinking, it was really important. I think that now it would matter less because the things that I would drink, I never had a drinking problem. You know what I mean? It was just like I would be, I'd be stressed from work or whatever, and I would just like want to have a shot or two at the end of the day, or 3 shots or 4 shots to just like take the edge off, right? But the thing is like when I forced myself to stop drinking, I did it cold turkey because I was like, what's the point? It's just like if you're gonna do it sooner or later, might as well do it sooner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped drinking the day that we decided to, without really any prompt. And then what happened is for the next 6 months, I was like, I would feel this like itch, like whenever I was stressed, like man, I could really use a drink, but I couldn't. And so it forced me to confront the things that I wasn't confronting, which is like decisions that were unmade, hard conversations I needed to have, relationships that needed to be cut out or brought in, depending on, what they were. And so I had all these unresolved loops that I needed to close. And then once I closed all those loops.
I'm Howard Preciado. If you like what you're watching and you want to learn from an entrepreneur that built 8 companies and makes over $30 million a year, text me at 213-277-6208 and let's make it happen.
Once I closed all those loops, my desire to drink went down dramatically. And then when I did decide to drink 2.5 years later, it wasn't like, I had to guzzle down 5 bottles of liquor because I wasn't drinking from a place of stress. I was like, okay, things are good. And so we're in the same place now where as long as you don't drink to run away from anything, then I think it's much less likely that you'll do it in excess.
Yeah.
But most people do it to escape. And I did too.
Yeah. Do you have any fears?
Probably lots. I haven't thought about them lately. Let me think. Probably the main human ones, fear of failure, I suppose. I think a lot of that has become less, but it might just be because I have all this evidence that I haven't failed. So I don't know. But I think that if all that were to be removed from me today or tomorrow, I think I'd be okay.
Do you ever feel like a fear of being broke again? And let me explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because, for example, you guys live really like a simple way of living. Like I know you bought a car because
Brad.
Yeah.
It was Brad.
and so you got a Bentley, then you sold it, then you sold everything.
Yeah.
You got your cash put aside, and you got your money put away.
Yeah.
Your means of living are not that high.
Yeah.
But then I think about because I agree with that.
Yeah.
But then I think about like what if I die tomorrow and I don't drive what I want to drive. I don't travel the way I want to travel. How do you process that on how are you going to spend your money on?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I think that to what you said, like drive what I want to drive, live where I want to live, fly where I want to fly, we do that. I just don't want to use someone else's drive what they want to drive. And so I realized for me when I had the Bentley that it didn't make any difference in my life. Like I did it because I thought it was cooler what other people would think. Like, I literally did it because Brad was like, dude, go buy one. I was like, all right, fine, I want to buy one. And it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
And so like, what are the things that we find valuable? Like we enjoy going out to dinner. So we've gone out to dinner every night for ever. We haven't used our kitchen. And I like that. You know what I mean? And like when we go out, we get whatever we, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter what, like we get whatever we want. I get 2 entrees last night, I had 2 entrees, 3 desserts. Like I just like that and it's cool. Like I enjoy that. We fly private a lot because we enjoy that and we get returns from that. We bought like, I'll just say a big number worth of big homes recently after having sold everything. And then, as soon as we got there, we were like, oh, I don't want to deal with I don't want the housekeeper, the AV guy, the lawn care, the pool guy, the decorator, like all of this stuff. And I was like, I just don't give a shit. And so we have like a 3,000 square foot, apartment that we can lock and leave and go wherever we want. And so I think that the point of money is to buy us options. And so I want to have the option to work because if I can't work, it's just as bad as having to work. And if I want to go fly private, I want to have that option to do it. I don't want to have to do it. And so I think it's for us, we've optimized towards optionality rather than quote freedom.
I've always said and I've always screamed to the world, I have this, so I'm gonna have this before I have it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a reality.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe I don't reach the number.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't reach 50 million.
Yeah.
But I reach 36 million.
Yeah.
But I've always been like that, and that keeps me pushed. It motivates me.
Yeah.
And you talked about private flying.
Yeah.
I never imagined I would fly private.
Yeah.
Like, I never imagined it. And then I screamed to the world, like, we're gonna fly private. I screamed to the world, we're gonna buy a jet.
Yeah.
We haven't bought the jet yet, but we will.
Yeah.
But when I flew private the first time with Sil,
Yeah.
and it felt, it's just a different amazing feeling. I know what, I know, because you know where you spend your money. You spend money on things you love.
Yeah.
So, like, flying private. Can you talk? Did that change anything in your life, or how was your first experience flying private?
It was just. I've said this before. Like, it just transforms what is normally a painful experience into one that can be enjoyable. Like, going from economy to first class, I don't think makes the flight enjoyable. I think it just makes it less painful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think flying private does make it an enjoyable experience. That being said, to what you were saying earlier about, like, casting it out in the world and trying to make it into reality, like, this is me just throwing it out there.
Well,
I think you would be just as successful if you didn't do it, because I think it's who you are. Like, you are going to win because winners win, and like, that is innate. And so if someone put duct tape on your mouth and took away your social media, you'd still fucking kill it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like, on the flip side, like, they've seen people who set really big goals and then they go after them, and that's what drives them. And then you can also set goals that you never miss, and you always keep over delivering on that incremental goal. I think either way, the winners win because of the activities that they do that drive the result. And so I think you would. I'm less spiritual about winning.
yeah. Are there certain traits that you see, like when you see somebody?
Yeah.
Can you tell, like, in 5 minutes if they have what it takes to win big, or does it take time for you to analyze a person? Do you know a lot of people are full of shit?
Yeah. I think talking to people, you get a vibe for how, you know, like, how sharp they are, some level of character. I mean, there's the whole, like, thinking fast and slow. Like, you can make, you know, 30. I mean, because I used to know from selling, and you've done a lot of sales too. Like, when someone walks in the door, I usually had a pretty good idea of whether I was going to close them or not before they even, like, started talking. You know what I mean? Like, you just start seeing patterns over, and, like, this person, I know how much, you know, what angle am I going to come from to, like, unlock this. But I don't want to sound arrogant. Like, I can read everyone, but I think it's when you get these unique pairings of people, like, what, because I was trying to think of, like, what is it factor? What is, like, X factor? Like, what is it? What makes someone special? Why do some people get raised up, right? And I think it's when we have patterns we don't recognize. And so, for example, if like if you look at this outfit, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times in my videos, I'm wearing a wife beater and I look like I'm in a basement. That's just being real, right?
I was gonna go there in a bit.
Yeah, right. And I think people have an expectation of what I'm going to sound like, whatever my level of intelligence is, whatever level of success they're expecting, and then it's not met. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when people can, and I think that those patterns where people, what happens is people are like, wait a second, what happened here? And then all of a sudden the brain goes into learning mode, because normally it's like pattern recognition, and then you don't actually have to consciously think, because it's just all unconscious. Like, you're just, I know what that person is, I know what they're about, because people usually grab their identities off the shelf. They say, oh, I'm going to be a country boy, and then they just adopt the country boy outfit, or I'm going to be the Instagram influencer avatar, right? And then they put that outfit on, and they believe those things, they do those things. And then they become just like everybody else. And so I think a big part of kind of like the quote authenticity is, like, everybody has had a unique experience, but they don't express that. And so they just conform. And so I think if you have true alignment of what you really deeply believe and what you say and what you do and how you act, then that is the authenticity. But I think most people are afraid of doing it because they're afraid of being rejected. And so it's so much safer to pull an identity off the shelf, dress like a goth, dress like a punk, dress like a corporate dude, dress like the real estate guys, right? Rather than just have something that's a little bit different. And that's what I think gives people pause. And I think that's what gives people, it factor or X factor.
Yeah. Speaking of that, the branding, because you're a genius marketer, and you know exactly what you're doing. I could tell you know exactly what you're doing. Like, there's always the strategy. Like, 'cause I think the same way. Yeah. There's always a reason why you're doing something. So, like, for example, like, let's say if you look like me, like if you buzz your hair and you start dressing like me, and then I switch it up and I start looking like you, I dress the same way, and you know, I get a bit bigger and do you think people are going to be like, wait a minute, that's not Albert, wait a minute, that's not Alex? Do you think it's important to have a look that separates you and that gives you that unique identity?
I think how you dress is a part of your identity, whether you like it or not. Even someone who, like, I mean, candidly probably dresses like me, it's like I might be trying to communicate something which is like, I'm dressing for comfort and function matters more to me than form. Like, that would be a value that I'm communicating with how I dress. It's also true. Now, if that weren't true, then it would be silly for me to dress in a way that would communicate that. Like, Leila probably dresses the exact opposite of me. She usually dresses it like her outfits probably cost more than our rent every month. And every day. But like, because for her, that communicates something else, which for her is like, I am excellent. Everything I have is always dialed in. Like, from every aspect of what I'm doing, like was curated, was thought of. And I'm here to present my best self for the day, for the opportunity, for everybody in the room. Yeah. And I want to respect and honor them by how I show up. Not that I don't feel that way. I just do it differently. You know what I mean?
But I think people like you because of the way you look. Like, it's just, you have that look. And Syl's the same way. She always has to be ready. Her nails, her eyelashes. She needs to put up. And she's the one, because I dress, we don't dress that much different. Yeah. I'm pretty casual. But I used to dress more casual, and she's the one that forced me to, like, hey, you can't look that you can't look that casual when you run a mortgage company or a real estate. So she got me to looking a bit more professional. Yeah. But this is me. Like, we have trainings on Tuesdays, Wednesdays. Yeah. I'm dressed like this.
I dig that.
I don't, when I, you know, sometimes people expect you because you're the owner or whatever title you have, they expect you to be in the suit and the tie. Yeah. And I don't like it. I'm comfortable like this too. Yeah. Is that one of the main reasons why you do it comfortable?
It's not the main reason is because it's just what I genuinely, I am comfortable. Yeah, I'm comfortable. Yeah. Like, this is what I wear. I go to the gym with this. I go out to dinner with this. This is just how I dress. Yeah. And like, all right, I'll go deep on this with you for a second. So I just bought 40 pairs of white tank tops to figure out what was the best white tank top. I bought probably 25 pairs of barefoot shoes to figure out which was the most comfortable when I worked out, which was the easiest that I could put on or off, which was the one that didn't bother my foot because we walk like 2 hours a day. And so putting all those things together so I could pick the right one so that I just don't have to think about it ever again. And so like, in terms of, that's for me, because that's just like, I tend to operate that way. Like, I used to eat the same sandwich every day, and Leila used to joke about it because, like, I had a bagel with this protein cream cheese and lox that was low-fat lox, because the whole meal was like 100 grams of protein. And she saw me every day experiment with a different way of eating it, which is like, okay, I'm going to put the lox, the cream cheese, and the thing, and I'm going to toast it, and I'll do glop, glop, and then take a bite. The other way is like, I put the cream cheese on and the salmon on and do that. Another way is I chopped all the salmon up so it was mush, so I didn't have to like have pieces that I'd pull off, because, you know, like half the sandwich is missing. You like got a piece. And so it's like, just continuing to think, like, is there a better way I can do this? And I think that, like, we all have these kind of innate questions. Tony Robbins talks about this, which, like, we have this like unstated question that we ask all the time. I think he says his is like, can I make this better? And when I was at the Tony Robbins event, I was like, I wonder what my question is, that like the one innate question you repeat over and over again. And I think mine is like, how can I use this? Yeah. And his was like, how can I make this better? For me, like, it was like, if I meet, and it probably sounds really utilitarian, if I meet someone, like, how can I use this? Which probably sounds bad, but like, I think that's what it, like, if I have a bad situation, like, how can I use this?
I think it also saves you a lot of time, right? When you just, you know, you're going to wear the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And eat the same thing.
100%. And so that's, how can I use an outfit? Well, this outfit is optimized for working out. I can change my temperature really easily, because if it's too cold in here, I can roll and button. And if it gets hot, I can roll it up. If it gets way too hot, I can take it off and I'm just in a beater, right? I can do the workouts with this, and I can, if I button it up and go out, I can go walk into any restaurant. If I take these off, because these are not sandals, because I've gone to the nicest restaurants, if I put my sport mode on, no one stops me, right? 4-wheel drive. And so, like, anyways, all that to say, I think this represents probably a lot of the values that I have, in terms of, like, I've thought of all of these things for me, of what is convenient, what is functional, what is comfortable, and then this is the end result of that.
On a quick questions on the 100 grams of protein, can your body process that at one setting, or because I heard that you could only process like 30, 40 grams at once. So 100 grams protein is good. You get it out of the way.
It's not that. So there's a nuance to that.
I'm Albert Preciado. If you like what you're watching and you want to learn from an entrepreneur that built 8 companies and makes over $30 million a year, text me at 213-277-6208 and let's make it happen.
There's a nuance to it. You can't do 100 grams of protein. It's 30 to 40 per hour, but you would eat 100 and you'd process the first 30 to 40 in the first hour, then you process the next 30 to 40 the next hour, and like it's in your gut the whole time.
Yeah.
So you could, I mean, like thinking that would limit your protein intake because you have to space it out throughout the day would be like saying a caveman isn't going to get his protein if he kills an animal and then eats 200 grams of protein in one sitting because he's fucking starving, that he only eats the 30 grams, the other 170 are thrown out. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just, you're going to get the first 30 to 40 now, and then in an hour you get another 30 to 40, just like, and so you have nutrients that are going through your system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Alex, going to your work, where you work from, like the closet. Is it a closet?
Yeah.
It's a closet, and you always have nose strips. What are those nose strips? Do they make you smarter, or what? What are those? What's special about those?
I've had 2 operations on my nose. I can't breathe too loud on my nose.
Yeah.
And so that just like it just you know keeps it open for me. Which is why I wear them. And because if I don't, I do this all day long, which I hate doing. So it just keeps it open. That was the nose strip thing. And then I like the being in the windowless closet, because if I have I love views to look at, but if I look at views while I'm working, I will stare out into space for, hours. And then I'm like, oh, where am I? And then 25 minutes went by. So if I have this, I'm just very scattered, I think, by nature. And so I try and control as many environmental conditions as I can.
Yeah. When I met you, you had a long talk. It was like, I think you spoke for like 2 hours, right? Because I didn't know you, right? So I see you speaking, and I'm there, and I'm like 10, 15 minutes in, and then it's like 30 minutes in, and then I'm like, damn, he's still on. Yeah. So I'm like, and you're like a lot about value.
Yeah.
You're talking about the boring stuff, not in a bad way, but that's the stuff that people need to listen to.
Yeah.
People get they want the entertainment and all that stuff. But I stepped out, got a drink, came back in, and it's like an hour and 15. You're still there, and then it goes on and on. And then I met you after when you came out, and we're at the bar. But about my question is on social media.
Yeah.
You got into social media not too long ago, right?
Yeah.
You weren't that known before, and I think, was it 8 months ago or a little bit more?
18 months is when I made my first YouTube video.
Okay. So in 18 months, you just blew up and you got a bunch of followers, got verified. Was that your priority that you wanted to do, or did you have a game plan on that, or how'd you do that?
Yeah. So there were a couple of things. So Dean Graciosi, who's Tony Robbins' right-hand man, who's become
I was with him, I know him, yeah.
Yeah. He's become a close friend. I asked him, is fame worth it? Because I was very big on the just be rich and anonymous. Like, I liked just being rich and anonymous. And he said, Alex, I get people who send me weird messages and threats and threaten my family. He said, but if that's the price I have to pay to make the impact I want to have, I'd pay it. I pay it every day of the week. And we said that, it really hit me, because I was like, man, I guess I'm trying to stay in this hole and not be known, because I was kind of shunning all that. And he's like, but if you want to make the impact, you want to help the people that you say you want to help, you have to become known. And so that was kind of one of the big things that started me on the path. That was probably the last push that got me into all right, I'll start making content and whatnot. And then from a business perspective, we're looking for internet businesses that are doing, 3 million to 30 million a year, to, take a meaningful stake in, so we can help scale them. And so that's what acquisition.com is. And so the best way to do that type of structure is to have inbound deal flows, to have people see stuff and then decide to walk towards you. Whereas the rest of my companies, I've always built off of paid ads, affiliates, cold calling, manual outbound, things like that. And so, but I knew with this process, getting a proprietary deal flow structure set up with trust at the onset, where we've already provided value, we've already helped someone 3x or 10x their business before they start working with us. It just speeds up the process so much more, and we operate from shared trust from the beginning. And it just makes for what I would hope, what I hoped, and now I can say is true, a much more enjoyable experience for both people. And it makes the diligence much shorter. And so it just makes for an overall more efficient growth process. And also because we come in as a minority partner with these companies, like I have no legal strong arm. I can't say I'm going to kick out the CEO. It's his company. And so it all has to be from a position of like influence and trust. And so like recently we just pulled the stats on the portfolio, but like the average company that we've worked with increases their revenue by 80% and triples their profit within the first 8 months. It's pretty cool. But you can only do that if someone trusts you to like make major changes in the business. And like, I still have to have some calls with them and be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to increase this price, or we're going to change this continuity. We're going to eliminate this product line. And if it was a traditional kind of like private equity or family office relationship, they would probably be much more resistant to those things. And so all of this branding stuff has the function of, you know, generating inbound companies for us. But then also if we zoom way, way, way out, I like the idea of just helping a lot of people for free without really selling anything.
You spend a lot of money on ads right now?
I spend $0 on ads.
Zero. And you give a lot of value, and you have that phrase where you say, "I have nothing to sell you."
Yeah.
Is that a strategy, or is that
happened on accident? Yeah, it happened on accident. Well, I was really frustrated because people were like, "This guy's going to sell us something." I was like, "I have nothing to sell you." I was like, "Go to the website. What can you buy? There's nothing to buy." And so, you know, because we're an investment company, like that's what we do. So we buy into companies. You know, we're technically a private equity company, so that's what we do. So if people were like, "When's the $10,000 course coming out?" I was like, "It's not. Like, here's what you would get for the $10,000 course, and I'll just give it to you, and you can just consume it and crush it." And the idea is, the strategy behind the business is get as many people as I possibly can into the world, help as many of them as I possibly can with the best stuff out there, and then the people who are hyper executors will self-select because they can execute without hand-holding, and then they will you know, seek us out and say, "Hey, I've used all your stuff. We 3x our sales, we 10x our profits, whatever it is. And like now I want to go from, you know, 5 million to 50 million. I want to go from 10 million to, you know, 100 million, whatever it is."
So wrapping up, Alex, to close out, I know that you sold you sold a few companies, right? And
Yeah.
you made a lot of millions.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit of the details, maybe as much as you can? And
Yeah.
then how did that change your life and Leila's life?
So the money didn't change. So I'll tell you some things we sold we sold 2 of the companies for $46.2 million. It was an all cash deal. There was no seller financing, no earn out, no consulting back, which was great, which was Gym Launch and Prestige Labs. We still retained 33% of the company. So we still believe in the company. We just wanted to exit from the majority position so that we could do acquisition.com, which was the goal. We sold Allen last year as well, which we were not at liberty to say what the price was. I can say it was a $12 million top line software company, what we had done in the 12 months prior. So we sold all 3 of those companies last year. And the thing is that like we've always run really high cash flow businesses. And to your point about living really pretty modestly compared to our income, Leila and I are already taken about 45 million in dividends out of the businesses just in the 5 years leading up to that. And so, you know, the $46 million price tag on the sale was not like life changing.
Yeah.
And I can say this is that when the wire came in, I did not feel the money that came in, but I did feel the stop in cash flow. And so you're just accustomed to a certain amount of cash flow that comes in. And for me, that's like almost my thermostat for like how I'm doing. And all of a sudden my big cash flow hose got dropped down to 0, but then I got this big lump, but I didn't feel the lump. And so I feel poorer now building acquisition.com than I did with Gym Launch and Prestige, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. I'm just saying like it was something that I didn't expect.
Because most people, they think about, oh, I'm going to sell, I'm going to get this much cash.
Yeah.
But then they don't realize the cash flow.
Yeah.
You went through that. So is that, so that really is important.
Yeah. Because then you have to take that money and then go recreate the cash flow you once had. Right.
Yeah.
And so that, so then it's like, and then you have to put an entirely different hat on because we've been like you and I too, both have been in the business game rather than the investing game. Right. I'm not an experienced investor. I have by sheer amount of money that I can invest, I am probably a high percentage investor by net worth, but investing is not how I made my money. Like I made money in business, you know what I mean? And then I translated it into cash. And so still to this day, like we're like acquisition.com is the thing that's going to get us to $1 billion. The money that we took out is just put in really safe stuff that we don't want to lose. Like we don't need to take big risks there because like, this is how I'm going to make everything, to get past the $1 billion. And I say that often mostly because it's like a fun goal and I'm dedicated to doing it. But it doesn't really mean
Can you share of acquisition.com, the company, what do you exactly do?
Yeah.
And how does your day look like now? What's your typical, you could answer that either before or after, but what's your typical Monday through Sunday and Leila's typical Monday through Sunday? For example, us, we're always together. Like we work out together, work together, have a life together.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of similar, but I don't know. Maybe you guys separate and do different things. How is your days, and what is acquisition.com?
So we take internet businesses from usually 3 to 10 million is the range that most of them come in at, and we take them to 30 to 100, and that's kind of the incubator spot. And it's always internet. It's almost all been internet businesses that we've taken on. And it's really, it's called value acceleration method. So VAM is the kind of the shorthand for it. But we reverse out how we're going to get to 50 million in terms of what does the enterprise need to look like, right? What's the leadership need to look like? What team needs to be there? What strategy and what monetization vehicle does this need to be in to get the multiple that it's going to yield, right? And so we work backwards from that we put it as a 36-month goal, back to the present, and then we start chipping away at it 12 weeks at a time. And so in the beginning, a lot of people come to acquisition.com, they expect that we're going to go do a ton of acquisition, but most of the times we have to fix the back end. We have to get customer success metrics in place. We have to get them on a CRM that tracks everything from click to close, end to end, so we can have metrics to make decisions. From there, usually we can 2, 3, 5x the customer lifetime value, and that's where we get the really huge outsized returns, because all that drops to bottom line. And so then we get this massive boom in profit that we can then, once we've improve the customer experience, increase the reputation in the space, then we have all this excess net free cash flow that's getting pumped out of the business that we can then go spend on recruiting high-level talent, go buying into networks or acquisition channels that we couldn't otherwise afford. And so it's really, we go back to front. So we fix the back end, fix the product, fix the experience, get the customer suite, right? Make sure customer segmentation is being tracked appropriately so we can figure out where we have the most leverage on profitability. We pull that as hard as we can. Once we've pulled all the levers we can on the back end, then we go and say, okay, well, we're getting, all of this is from cold calls, but do we have a cold email team? Do we have an ads team? Do we have a TikTok team? Do we have an organic team? Do we have a partnership and affiliates team? So like all of a sudden then we can start expanding the amount of channels that we have.
And when you do this, is it just you and Leila, or do you have like a CFO?
Oh, no, we have a team. Yeah, we have a team.
And so everybody analyzes the business together.
Yeah, exactly. So we have also, like our CFO, for example, she's done 16 sell side exits. So she was on the team that did the sale. The biggest one she sold was 15 billion. And then she sold the last 2 companies with us. And then before that was 750 million. Before that was $1 billion. And so she's very accustomed to walking through these transactions.
Not cheap, right?
No, not cheap. She's a partner. And so what we do, and we have, our portfolio operating partner who's really specialized in customer success and doing kind of what I just outlined. Leila's really good at getting the operational team, the culture, the leadership in place. I'm pretty good at pricing and product and getting the messaging right and whatnot. And so we think about it as like an on-demand C-suite. Is like a company comes in, and let's say we know that a company at 10 million needs to look like this, right? And the company currently looks like this.
Yeah.
And so we match what our reality is to fix this so that it matches. So we basically copy and paste our expertise into the team so that it can get to that level. And then maybe at 10 million, we might have to swap out 2 and get 2 different people in, or move 2 people above them unless they have the ability to grow. And so at 3 million, you might need a staff accountant. At 10 million, you might need a controller. And at 30 million, you need a CFO. And so it's not just knowing like, okay, this is what we need to do to get there, but this is what we need to do right now in this business today to get to the next step. And so I think a lot of times it's the people will take something from 2 steps forward and it's not the right sequence, even though it's the right move.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to respect your time, Alex. One last question.
Yeah.
And when I realized, like you talked about controller, then CFO, COO, how important they are.
Yeah.
So when you start a business, you kind of want to have all the control, and you want to say the last word and everything. But then when you start doing good, then you want to let go of the control because you want to get smarter people than you to run it for you so that you don't have any control.
Yeah.
I know you went through that whole process. So is that how it is? How you see it?
Yeah, I think entrepreneurship in general is a continuous and unrelenting relinquishing of control. And so like most people want freedom, right? So it's like we have these polar opposite, these contrasting values that we are after. We're entrepreneurs, so we want absolute freedom, and then we also want absolute control, and you can't have both. And so if you want true freedom, you have to give up control. If you want true control, you have to give up your freedom. And so if everything's dependent on you, then everything's dependent on you. And so for me, I value freedom more than I value control. And I think that the leveling up that happens in entrepreneurship, at least in my journey, has been what my expectations of talent look like. Like, I remember when I got my first $50,000 a year employee, and I was like, whoa, this is awesome. Because I was used to like $10 an hour, you know, so I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, this is where it's at. And then I remember I got my first $70,000 a year employee, and I was like, this is where it's at. And then I got my first six-figure employee, and I was like, okay, now we're talking. And then I got my first $250,000 a year employee, and I was like, that's what's up. And then I got my first $1 million a year employee, and I was like, okay. And so I think that what happens is just like it's the continually leveling up what talent exists. And I had a mentor say this to me. He said, you have to remember that the best talent isn't even on your team yet. They're in the future. You haven't even hired them yet. And so I think that's been probably the biggest thing, because if it's a continuous process of relinquishing control, then it means it's a continuous process of leveling up the people that you can give the control to.
Alex, something that the audience doesn't know about you, something you never shared in anywhere.
Man, French is my first language.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you guys. Hopefully it was valuable for your time as well.
I had so many more. I could have kept going, but I think you got to go.